The Marvel Cinematic Universe. The biggest pop culture movement since the Beatles, $22.5 billion at the box office, and we found the one guy who doesn't have a clue what we're talking about. With two fellow MCU nerds to help guide his hand along the way, one thing is for certain, we're with him until the end of the line. Welcome to Colin Brain versus the MCU. On your left, Showtime, a-holes. Yes, welcome back to your favourite podcast designed for your ear holes. And here we are still in the early stages of Phase 3, the last phase in the Infinity Saga. Oh, how time flies when you're having fun. Did you just say what?
You said we were in what, sorry?
It's called the Infinity Saga.
Have you guys explained this to me before?
Maybe not.
I don't think we have.
They designed 3 sagas all based on a comic book run called the Infinity Gauntlet or something like that. And
all right.
It's called the Infinity Saga. And they pretty much said very early days that this was all going to culminate in something that we'll get to in a few months, I think.
So this is the last phase that we're in now?
Yes, before
we
hit a big reset, essentially. Yes.
Oh, fuck. All right.
Next time, baby.
But we are a while. Yeah, there's a big next time, baby.
Oh, okay.
We're a while away from that. So yeah, before we jump back into the cosmos and spend some time with a ragtag, dysfunctional, socially awkward and music-loving freaks, please allow me to introduce my fellow ragtag, dysfunctional, socially awkward and music-loving freaks.
Yep.
Rob and Colin, say hello, boys.
Hello, boys.
I was going to say hello, boys. We could have done that in unison there.
That would have been...
Well done.
It's worrying, though, that we're on that same sort of wavelength already.
Exactly.
I like it.
Oh.
So because we're recording in some strange time loop, I was going to say tonight that maybe we could promote our own Colin Brain versus the MCU Guardians style mixtape that we've popped on our Spotify. But like I said, it's like recording in a fucking TARDIS. I never quite know what's going on. So how about this, boys? I'm going to spring this upon you.
Okay.
For everyone listening at home, check the episode description below, and you'll find not only the link to volume 1 of our playlist,
we're doing
but
a 2.
volume
All right.
2 that the boys are obviously now just finding out about. Are you up for it, boys?
100%.
Yeah, man. I had a load left over from the last one. I can't believe you only gave us... Did we have 5 in the end? Or was
5.
Oh, 5's... It's not enough, mate. It's just not enough. I had tons to go through. That was whittled down. I changed that so many times just trying to pick that perfect 5 for everyone.
As
I we had
George
about
put
4
it-
listens as well.
Didn't George say that he just picked random shit that he found on Spotify?
Yeah, he didn't even know half the songs. He's like, I heard that one on Spotify. I thought it was pretty cool.
Found most of them the night before.
Yeah.
No effort.
It killed me.
Hey. Oh.
We'll get to one of my choices from volume 1 later in this episode.
Interesting. So how are we both? Very hot, I'm assuming. We're recording
sweaty.
this in a heat wave, and last thing you want to do in a heat wave is record a podcast.
In the words of Nelly, the great poet, oh, it's hot as balls in here.
Well, I just ran across the street because I've also realised, I haven't just realised, I'm fucking knackered. And I didn't have a chance to make a coffee, so I've just run across to the garage and I've got this can of a drink called Tenzing. It's not a sponsor, but if people want to send me one, do it.
I've heard of
It's like
Tenzing.
it's like one of our very close friends, Sam Giles, introduced me to a Tenzing. So shout out to him for being a legend. And it's basically like a sort of it's called a natural energy drink. Probably still full of shit. Going to kill me.
No, I think it's like a slightly healthier version of Red Bull.
But I'm going to neck
or
it.
something like
I'm
that.
going to just neck it now, to be honest, because I need some energy.
In one?
Not in one. I mean, it's not.
right.
I don't want like down it.
Well, this is good content.
But so I might be a little bit buzzed because I haven't eaten a lot today either. So I apologise if I kind of go off the rails a bit. Cheers, guys. Excuse me.
Well, we're currently recording this on the opening weekend of another Marvel movie. So myself, being a manager of a cinema, I currently ache all over. But Colin, you'll be pleased to know that this new release actually clocks in at under 2 hours.
Wow.
So surely, whenever we finally get to that movie, that's going to be another star added onto your rating.
That'll be a breeze, mate. That will.
But according to my calculations, yeah, you're not going to be seeing this until 2023. So there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to catch up on.
It kind of felt like I was getting somewhere, but the way you're talking is like it feels like there's so much to happen.
Every time we feel like, oh, we're catching Colin up, like a new TV show comes out or a new film, and then suddenly it's like, we're nowhere near. Like in my head for ages, the end of phase 3 has always been like, oh, that's, then we're caught up.
Okay.
But there's been so much in phase 4. So I'm kind of like,
are the TV, so I know we're already banging on a bit, but are the TV shows part of only when it gets to phase 4? Or do we have TV shows in phase 3?
No TV shows in phase 3.
Wow.
Like MCU ones, obviously there's been stuff like Daredevil.
Oh yeah, the Netflix ones, right?
Yeah, but no, phase 4 is currently when the actual MCU shows start. But we all met up again this weekend, didn't we? We all went to watch a film in London.
Oh, yes.
And
what a film.
I was on... What a film.
Oh, yes.
We talked about it in last week's episode. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. So I was on the London Underground on my way to meet up with you boys. And honestly, the amount of Marvel-related posters just set my anxiety off. Like, it's a miracle you are not spoiled daily. But you did almost get spoiled watching UFC last weekend, didn't you?
Oh, I did. Oh, shit. I completely forgot about that. I did, yeah. And also, like... when we met up to watch that film at like 11 a.m. in the morning, I think I was running on about 2 hours sleep because there was a big UFC on, and obviously because I'm UK based and the times are for America, like when I watch a pay-per-view like that ends, there was 2 title fights as well at the back end of it, so I think the actual event ended at like maybe 6:30, 6:45, and then my alarm went off at 9 to then jump on the tube and meet you. But yeah, anyway, I can't remember. I was tired. It was either before the co-main or before the main. Because it's a big pay-per-view, I guess they, get the big advertisers want to put like a trailer or something right before the last fight. And I mean, I don't know if it's happened in the past. This is the first time I've ever noticed it. But I'm sat there and then all I see flash up on the screen, like the screen goes black, sorry. And then I just see Thor just stood there with his arm out. And the next shot I see is I can't really remember for certain, but it's like a hammer then like starts doing, floating or flying towards his hand. And I just shat myself, mate. In hindsight, it's utterly ridiculous. Like, what is this podcast doing to me? But I was like, I put my head between my legs and I like shoved the cushions that I was sat on around my ears. Because firstly, I just put my head down and then I could start hearing shit and people talking. I'm like, oh, fuck, this ain't good enough. So I'm sat there at probably 6 o'clock in the morning with my head between my legs, 2 cushions, like sandwiching my face. And I'm just going, what am I doing here? Like, what have these guys done to me? And then I had to do a similar thing in the cinema as well, didn't I?
You did. So during the adverts for the actual film as well, there's this stupid little advert for something. I think it was like Direct Line Insurance.
Oh my God.
And then they had this new Marvel character present the advert in character. They must have been on screen half a second before, I was just like, la, 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 like, trying to make noises to distract you.
Everyone at the
between
cinema,
the legs again,
just looking at us like we're freaks.
Yeah.
Colin just curls up in a ball again. I'll never get the image out of my head of Colin in a cinema at 11 o'clock in the morning, suddenly curling up into a ball, fingers in his ears, and then I hear him scream from in between his legs, "This is ruining my life!"
I mean, come on, man. All right, I know I haven't enjoyed all these films, and I'm probably not making any friends in the Marvel, nerddom or whatever, but you've got to respect that. I mean, come on, that's some dedication right there. That is a commitment right there.
Oh, I really struggled to concentrate on the first 10 minutes of the film because I was sitting there having some sort of existential crisis, just going like, have I ruined Colin's life?
Honestly, though, it is weird because I don't know if it's just maybe because you were heading dead central on the Sunday, but there's not a whole lot of Marvel posters around my area.
I don't like every other.
Yeah, maybe it's just. I mean, I'm sure they slam most of them central because that's where everyone's going. I mean,
we was also around the corner from something, weren't we?
Yes, yep. So we all went for a little walk to get some lunch after the film as well, and it was only That evening, I realised I popped on Twitter and found out about a 30-second walk, 45-second walk round the corner from where we were. They were filming something Marvel related on the streets with some big actors on the street, and that would have confused Colin very much.
You guys would have loved it though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure. So, before we jump into the background of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and we will also discuss Rob's nickname, I've made a little game.
Oh,
not
no.
a quiz, not
Come
a
on
quiz, not a quiz.
You know what to do, Colin.
So, it's going to be
No.
it's going to be 10 questions,
Okay.
but true or false. You both get the same questions this time, but it's not on the MCU. It is on
What?
song titles.
Oh, come on, man. I just want to get on with talking about this film. I've got
I'm
so
gonna
much to
list-
say.
I'm
I don't
gonna
care
list
about your shitty games.
10 song titles, and you both have to tell me whether it's a real song title or one I've just made up.
So what? Get one each, or what? It's the first
No.
one to say it?
You just
Oh,
I want
okay,
both
we
your
pick and
answers
then you tell us.
around
Okay,
the
cool.
same time.
Cool.
So we'll try and get this over and done with, Colin, but I thought there's lots of music, obviously, in these films. So here we go. So, first song title, true or false, if this is a real song title, Jet Ski Jubilee.
False.
True.
It is false.
Honestly, Colin.
Sorry.
Call yourself
I'm
a
not
music
playing your
producer.
Here we go again. Next song. Please, Daddy, don't get drunk this Christmas.
True.
True.
It is true. It is by John Denver.
I was going to say, it's the song that your daughter sings most Christmases.
She sings it to me every Christmas. I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy.
True.
False.
Oh, it is true. It's a song by Dr. Randy Hanslick, and that is his real name, and he's a real doctor. Last one, number 4.
Oh, great.
The Robot with Human Hair, Part 5.
True.
True.
It's false, I just made that up.
Oh.
Next song, Dive Bar Dance Off.
True.
True.
It's false again, I just made it up.
You're wasted in your career. You should be some kind of
Making song
songwriter.
titles for people. Satan Gave Me a Taco.
True.
True.
It's true, that's by Beck. It's free apiece. Dogs can grow beards all over.
True.
False.
It is true, it's by a very heavy metal band Devil Wears Prada. You're the reason our kids are so ugly.
True.
False.
It's true. It's by 2 country singers Loretta Lynn and Conway Twitty. Turn the lights off. I'm watching Back to the Future.
True.
False.
It's false. And, last question. I want to find a woman that will hold my big toe until I have to go.
True.
I hope it's true.
It is true. It's by Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band. Colin,
Yeah.
6, Rob 5.
I don't know if you noticed. I just said true to everyone because I didn't
Did you
want to
really?
play your shitty game.
And by default, you managed to figure out how to win. Well done.
Thanks.
Does he
mate.
win a prize?
No worries at
Because I still own Object of My Affection.
Oh yeah, have you watched it yet?
No, not yet. I'm saving it.
Oh man, we've got to do a
For
bonus
what?
on that one.
Yeah, bonus
Bonus.
episode. You're watching it too.
Oh,
let's watch it.
oh my
Yeah.
God, that'd be, yeah, brilliant. Okay, before we move on, Rob, what's your nickname this week on Zoom?
Yon Doo-Doo.
Of course it is.
I had an alternate. Do you want to hear it? I was really
Always.
torn.
I want to hear it.
So my other one was going to be Michelle Face. Because there's a character called Taser Face. And Taser, Blazer, Laser, and Michelle is a very deep cut dodgeball reference.
That is a big deep cut reference. I'm very glad you went with yon doo doo,
They were
which
my
is
options.
not a sentence I ever thought I'd say.
At least we now know what level it can go to.
Yes.
Dodgeball references. Okay, I got a feeling today's going to be a big one. So shall we jump back into things, and you boys give me the floor so I can introduce Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 to both our lovely listeners and to yourself, Colin.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Oh, you need me to say yeah as well?
No, I lost my notes.
Go for it. Knock yourself out.
We're ready.
I'm going.
So far, so good. Skip the compliments. Let's get on with it.
So, as previously mentioned in our last Guardians of the Galaxy episode, there was a Guardians script floating around Marvel Studios by Nicole Perlman that James Gunn, he sort of heavily adapted and changed around, but there was enough of its original structure in there for Perlman to still get a credit for the script. This time around, James Gunn, also thanks to the massive success of the first movie, had complete freedom to do whatever he wanted with this sequel. He was given a massive budget of $200 million, which is insane. But he decided instead of going bigger, he wanted the film to feel a little more intimate. Yes, they're still, saving the galaxy at the end, but he almost wanted the film to have like a hangout sense to it, where we're just spending time with our characters interacting with each other, and where character was just as important as plot. So within 1 month of the first Guardians being released, James Gunn started work on the screenplay. His first draft included a character known by comic book fans as Adam Warlock, but obviously he never made it to the screen. Gunn was very, very open about that original draft, and he said, "I love Adam Warlock. He's one of my favourite characters in Marvel. And in all truth, I wrote an early treatment where I had Adam Warlock a part of the film. He was a big part of the screenplay, and I realised it was just one character too many. I adored the character. I adored what we did with him. I think we did something really creative and unique with Adam Warlock. But it was one character too many, and I didn't want to lose Mantis, and Mantis was more organically part of the movie anyway. So I decided to save him for later." So I think it's clear to all MCU fans that Peter Quill's dad was going to be in this sequel, as it's heavily hinted at during the closing sequences of the first film. So Marvel and Gunn were very open yet again that casting had begun on some new characters, including Ego, who would obviously be Quill's father, and his parentage was going to be revealed right away at the beginning of the film. No big Darth Vader style twist. Relative newcomer Pom Klementieff was also cast in the very early stages of the film's development as Mantis, but James Gunn and Kevin Feige wanted a big name for Ego. They were willing to pay the big bucks for whoever was going to get this role. So as casting began, Christopher Nolan had just released Interstellar, and James Gunn was very impressed by Matthew McConaughey's performance. So Marvel approached him and they offered him the role of Ego. However, at the exact same time, he was also offered the villain role in a film called The Dark Tower, based on a very popular series of Stephen King novels. In a very, very, very bad move, McConaughey actually passed on Guardians 2 and signed on for The Dark Tower, which, Rob, have you seen it?
I've not, but I've heard it's not all right.
It is awful. It's so bad. And so then Kevin Feige and James Gunn took a Mr. Kurt Russell out for dinner and, explained the character of Ego. They gave him a very detailed 70-page treatment of the film. And of course, Kurt Russell said yes. So whilst writing the first film, James Gunn said that he knew Ego was going to be Quill's father, and he knew he was going to be a villain in a future film if he was lucky enough to make another one. He didn't actually tell that to Kevin Feige, though. It wasn't until the first film was actually released when Kevin Feige approached Gunn and was like, "You've set up the father. Who is it?" And when Gunn replied saying it was a character called Ego the Living Planet, Kevin Feige had a near panic attack at trying to figure out how the hell they were going to adapt this character, because in the comic books, He is literally a planet with a face on it. He also knew, James Gunn, that writing the first movie, that it was also ego that killed Meredith Quill. So, you know, during the opening of the first film, while she's on her deathbed, I think she mentions Peter's dad being made of pure light. That was James Gunn's way of hinting that there was a lot more to be explored about Peter's parentage. But Gunn also found that the reception and the success of Volume 1 inspired the script in many ways that he didn't expect. He recently had this to say about it. Chris Pratt and I, early on, were discussing what we could do with the second movie. And I think that in the wake of the first movie, both of us experienced this tremendous lift in our egos, where we went from like Chris Pratt being the chubby supporting actor on a sitcom. I was just a guy directing cult, low budget movies. And suddenly after that, I could direct any movie I wanted to, and he could star in any movie he wanted to. So I really think that the movie, in a lot of ways, is about us and our relationship to our own ego, and to not be destroyed by it, and allowing ourselves to still be ourselves and stay who we were before we started making the movie. That's really, to me, the personal story of Volume 2. For me, it was about ego taking over everything. And so, a very drama-free shoot, as always, with Mr. James Gunn. Guardians 2 opened on May 5th, 2017, to an incredible $146 million opening weekend. It made $863 million worldwide. The original made $773, so just under $100 million more than the first movie, which was already an incredibly successful movie. The first film was a massive critical success. Now, you might be surprised to know this, Colin, or you might not be, depending on what you thought of the film. The second one received quite a mixed critical reaction. Some critics hailed it much better than the first one, and possibly one of Marvel's very best movies. But there was also some critics that said it was a bit of a mess. But what James Gunn did, he refused to stick to the formula that he presented in the first film. He wanted to make a film that at its core was still a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but was also a film that felt different from the first and maybe even take some risks narratively. So speaking of it slightly dividing the crowd, it's time for the big question. Colin, what did you think?
Okay. Wow. This is a big one for me.
Okay.
It's probably a big moment for the podcast as well, because I was watching the film today, and this is the first time that I feel like I might be getting into these a bit. But hold on there, because
Goosebumps.
That comes with an asterisk, which we'll definitely get into throughout this episode.
Yes.
Literally, like, I would say 10, 15 minutes into this, maybe 20 minutes, I had my phone in my hand and I was about to message the group chat saying, and this is for the hardcores, this is from episode 1, we're going to throwback here. I was about to message you boys going, I might be eating those words today. And if you know what that's a reference to.
Whoa.
But then, I thought the film turned into a fucking mess. And then it just completely, like, I was up there. I was like, I'm in. This is it. Like, I was feeling like I have not. Like, honestly, I think the opening credits sequence to this film is probably one of the best. It's the best in the MCU for sure.
Right.
Like, that shit got me feeling exactly how I felt at the end of the first one, which was like, this is fucking amazing. If I was a kid in the cinema watching this, it would be my favourite film of all time. And I thought they did such a good way of just pulling you straight back in there.
Yeah.
From that first scene. It was like when you go and meet up with a friend, one of your closest friends, you haven't seen them for a year or two.
Yeah.
It's like you've never been apart. That's what it felt like. And I was like, holy shit, I'm actually getting into these films, which for me is big. Let's be real, it's big. And then just where it went, man. Like, I was gutted by the end of it. I was so gutted. But I'm excited to talk to you about it because at least I'm like, it's a positive, right? Because like, at least I'm starting to feel a bit more like I actually care enough about these films to even have some sort of like emotional response to it.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I'm just gutted because I texted Rob a couple of hours ago because you messaged us as well, being like, boys, we need to talk tonight. And I immediately messaged Rob and I was like, we're getting to 5. I mean, I'm probably going a bit too hard saying it turned into a mess. I think
there was so many moments of this that I loved, but I just feel like the overall story, like the main plot and all of that stuff, just really didn't. It really didn't work for me. But like, so to say it was a mess, like I still enjoyed the film, and there was even moments right at the end of the film that I was still really enjoying. I think one thing I've realised from this one is like, to me, Guardians of the Galaxy, like that crew, they're the ones for me. Like they overtake the majority of everyone else in the MCU for sure.
Nice.
Like just number one, Star-Lord, ledge. Like he's up there. He's probably my favourite, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, he could do with a better helmet. Like that's
Right.
not the best suit in the world. He deserves a better suit, I think. Can you get on to Feige about this?
Yeah, he listens.
Yeah, I bet he does.
Rob, how was the rewatch for you?
Well, let me just. I'm not one to blow my own trumpet. You know this. But. Audio commentary facts. It's the first time I listened to it in the commentary. It was done by James Gunn. Again, just a delight to listen to. He sort of talks about emotional influences, his visual influences. He gets technical at times. It's a very, very good commentary.
Nice.
I love this. We'll get into this film.
Good. I've always enjoyed this film. And like I said earlier, I think it could have been very easy for James Gunn to repeat the formula of the first one. But with this one, you know, whilst it maintains the sort of tone of Volume 1, it does feel different. I think it feels a little bit more personal, especially like, you know, the moments towards the end. Some of the final moments really hit with me with Yondu, and there's a couple of moments with Rocket as well I think are really lovely. I think the journey Rocket takes in this movie is incredibly moving. I'm sure we'll get to it. But we'll get into it. There's lots more I could say right now, but to me this is a very special film. But it's a special film with lots of jokes about poo. So it's definitely a James Gunn movie. So shall we do our deep dive?
Let's do this.
So we open in Missouri in 1980 as Meredith Quill is seen driving with an unnamed man.
Sorry, George.
She looks...
Sorry.
Yep.
Can you hear that on the mic?
God, so I actually fell for it.
Audio commentary facts. The film opens in Missouri. As James Gunn states, he actually hailed from Missouri and wanted his birthplace to be the birthplace of Peter Quill, as he relates to the character a fair bit. The number plate on Ego's car, I'm guessing it's Ego's car, is also the same as James Gunn's first car.
Oh, okay.
Nice little
Very
touch.
nice. Meredith Quill looks happy and in love.
Sorry, George.
It's okay.
I can
takes
hear
her-
something again.
Oh, another one.
I'm going to kill him.
Nah.
He takes her into a forest to show her some form of growing plant in the ground. He expressed that he's been worried that it wouldn't take to the ground, but soon it will be everywhere. They embrace and kiss again. So we have another flashback scene to open our Guardians film, much like Volume 1. And I think we really have to talk about this de-aging CGI that Marvel are doing right now. So previously, so far, we've seen them do it in films like Ant-Man and I think Civil War. But this is the best I think it's ever looked so far. Colin, in regards to Guardians 2, is there anything you knew about this film beforehand? Did you know Kurt Russell was going to be in it, for example?
No, I knew zero going in. So I was quite surprised. Surprised to see him.
Good.
Yeah, very
And
surprised.
in this opening as well, we have our first song of the soundtrack too. We open with Brandy, You're a Fine Girl from Looking Glass. I love that with this Guardians film, it felt like people were anticipating the soundtrack as much as the film. Do all these needle drops add to the film, or are they just distracting? What do you think, Colin?
No, I don't think they're distracting. It's an element of the film that I'm really into, actually.
Rob, is it all too self-indulgent, or is the film better for it, having so many musical sequences?
I think it's better for it. And also, talking of Brandy by Looking Glass, the fact that they tie that into the narrative and it becomes a plot point and also an emotional sort of moment for both Peter and Ego. And also has that connection to his mother. at the same time as the lyrics being sort of symbolic. Great. But also, Mr. Blue Sky is my favourite song of all time.
Nice.
So when this film opened with it, I was in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of, in 2014, Peter Quill, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, and Baby Groot are renowned as the Guardians of the Galaxy. Aisha, the leader of the sovereign race, has the Guardians protect valuable batteries from Obelisk, an interdimensional monster, in exchange for Gamora's estranged sister, Nebula, who was caught attempting to steal the batteries. And Colin, you've mentioned this scene already, where we're finally reintroduced to our heroes. So, what did you think to this opening fight sequence? You said you loved it.
Oh, I loved everything about it, mate. Everything. It was done perfectly. It reintroduced us to all the characters. It reminded us why we fell in love with them in the first film. Baby Groot, legend.
Because I remember
I know.
End of Volume 1, you were like, it better not be Baby Groot in Volume 2.
I know. I'll eat those words, mate.
That's
But I'll
fine.
admit when I'm wrong. I always will do that. And totally wrong here. They made that motherfucker the cutest thing I've ever seen. And I was in from the get-go. Simple as that. I mean, hats off to whoever designed that little thing. Because, so many good moments with Groot, man. So many good moments. That whole thing. Like I said, man, I was like... And you know me, mate. Like, Rob knows me. He's getting to know me. But you know me really well, George. How many times do I ever say, like, I get like that over a film? I mean, let's be real. It's been a long, long time since I ever even... So, like, yeah, I was in, mate. In.
I'm half happy.
You should be happy, because those moments, like, are enough for me to still be excited about the rest of the franchise. Like, just because I might not have liked the direction that the film went in and I've got issues with it, it is actually a good thing that I kind of care enough about it to even have those moments, if you know what I'm saying.
Cool.
So it's a positive. It really is a positive.
Okay, I'm on board. Yeah, Rob, I mean, you'd have to be heartless not to smile the entire way through this opening sequence, right?
It's the best thing ever. Mr. Blue Sky is my happy song when I'm having a real crap day or a really great day. Mr. Blue Sky just sort of fixes it. Either makes it happier or just removes all the negative stuff. It is the best song. I love it. So when this come on in the cinema and he's doing that dance and it's all in one shot and we're seeing how all of the, the actions in the background and all the Guardians, how they react to Groot now that there's a baby version of him.
Yeah.
Just so good. So fun.
Love it.
Like Colin said.
I love the moment, the small little moment of like Rocket flying up to Groot sort of mid-battle because Groot's found some sort of little insect and Rocket's like patting him on the back, being like, spit it out! So good.
Also, you can't not talk about when Drax is inside that.
That's literally my next thing to talk about. In that one shot of him inside the thing, just slicing away.
And his head emerging in a weird sort of vaginal Ace Ventura style.
Yeah.
I also love Drax freezing or Groot freezing when Drax sees him mid-fight and then carries on his dance afterwards. It's amazing.
So good. And even just after the battle, there's an incredible Drax moment. And it's so small and so stupid, but I love it. The monster's been vanquished and Drax asks Peter Quill what the batteries are called. And Quill goes, they're called Annulax batteries. And Drax sort of nods his head and goes, Harbulary batteries. And like, Quill's like, that's not what I just said. I love that Drax is always on planet Drax. And like you said, Colin, it's right from the get-go. And as soon as the beat kicks in to Mr. Blue Sky, it kind of freeze frames for a little bit on Groot dancing. It's wonderful. And Rob, surely James Gunn mentioned this in the commentary, but it was James Gunn that choreographed all of Rocket's moves and dance moves in that sequence, wasn't it?
All of Groot's dancing, the motion capture was based on James Gunn dancing around a room like a madman.
Nice.
So, after Rocket steals the batteries for himself, the Sovereign attacks the Guardian's ship with a fleet of drones. a mysterious figure destroys the drones and the Guardians crash land on a nearby planet. There, this figure reveals himself as Quill's father, Ego, and invites Quill, Gamora, and Drax to his home planet. Rocket and Groot remain behind to repair the ship and guard Nebula. So we'll get on to Ego shortly. So, Colin, I guess this is quite a big question for you. You've already mentioned things about like Quill and Baby Groot and stuff like this. So, like, how were the rest of the Guardians for you in this film? Did you come to love any characters anymore? Did any of them go down in the rankings, so to speak?
I think they all probably went up a notch or two, to be honest. I think, let me have a... Reel them off to me and I'll give you my...
Okay, so we'll start
small,
off,
like, just very short opinion.
we'll start off with Star-Lord then. You've said Ledge already.
Yeah, Ledge. I mean, this was a tough one, and it's sort of how I feel about the whole film. I realised that Star-Lord is probably my favourite character out of the entire MCU watching this, but I also feel like his role in the film wasn't quite what I would have personally liked to have seen. I think there was a little bit too much, like, this is sort of a summary of how I felt about the film, really. I think there was just a little bit too much of, like, the scenes between him and Ego, and it felt like it was drawn out for a long while. And don't get me wrong, the acting, everything about that was cool. Like, Kurt Russell's the man, you know. But yeah, it just felt like it wasn't right for me. I don't know why. It just wasn't.
Interesting. We kind of already mentioned Baby Groot. What about Drax then throughout the film?
Yeah, Drax is cool. I mean, I think if you were to criticize, maybe you'd say he didn't have the biggest amount of character development out of the lot of them.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, he had some bigger scenes, maybe some longer dialogue scenes and stuff. I mean, Dave Bautista's like a legit actor, like, you know,
a comedy genius, I'd say. His comedic
exactly.
timing is unreal.
Yeah. So yeah, they kind of upped the funny for him, which I loved.
They did.
But other than that, you didn't get a whole load. You know, you got a lot more development in like Rocket and Yondu. Would Yondu be classed as a Guardians of the Galaxy-ish on the edge, maybe?
I'd say only by the end of the film, but we'll get to Yondu soon.
Sure. And then Mantis was cool.
We shall get on to Mantis as well. So you've already mentioned Rocket. So Rocket is, dare I say, a bit of a dick in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So how was he for you in this? Still likeable?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, he was a bit of a dick, but you saw those moments where I can't remember who was it between him and Yondu later on in the film, where they kind of realised that you see the facade of Rocket slip away, and you see that the reason he's doing it is because he's, you know, very traumatized from his upbringing, and it was all coming from a place where he probably just needs a hug from everyone and he'll feel better. Do you know what I'm saying?
I'd say so too, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, like you just said, what about we'll end on Gamora?
Oh yeah, Gamora was cool. Let's have a think. Gamora. Yeah, I mean, the whole sister thing was like the sort of subplot, wasn't it?
Yeah, they get their own sort of arc and subplot.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this film felt like. It felt like it got to the point that you're talking about now, and then it kind of split off into like 3 separate plots. And to be perfectly honest, I just wanted to see the crew go and do their thing for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, the plots were cool. It felt like it was, I don't know, it felt very TV show to me. It felt like this film could have been like a 6-part TV show, and it could have been like longer and a lot more. And if it had been done that way, it kind of felt like they were trying to compress that into a movie.
Yeah. Interesting. Rob, does this cast deliver upon the promise that the first film left us with? Are any cast members maybe beginning to show any rust on their grinds, or is everyone still giving their all?
Is that actually becoming a thing?
I think it is. He's embracing it. I agree that I think Drax he does get some growth. He does get he gets one of my favourite moments in the film. But I think they do lean on him being funny. And I don't necessarily know if that's the best thing. I still enjoy him, but I think, maybe they did that a bit too much. I don't know. I'm sort of real nitpicking here. But in terms of everyone else, yeah, I love it. I think everyone is developed and matured from the first film.
Yep.
Characters that you thought were just base villains, like Nebula, for example, get given a lot more depth and a lot more nuance to them. So the film's great at doing that. In terms of character, it is, top tier.
Good. I agree completely. I think everyone gets to do a little bit more than what they did in the first film here. We'll get into some of the specific plot arcs very, very soon. But yeah, I think James Gunn has done a fantastic job here. So meanwhile, Aisha hires Yondu and his crew, who have been exiled from the Ravager community for child trafficking, to recapture the Guardians. They capture Rocket, but when Yondu hesitates to turn over Quill, whom he raised, his assistant Kraglin questions his objectivity, and his lieutenant Taserface leads a mutiny with help from Nebula. So, Colin, you've already very much said it. This film very much has an A plot, a B plot, and you maybe could even say a C plot. And I think that is, again, one of the reasons why this film did receive quite a mixed reaction when it came out. So, you've already said you would have preferred the team to all to stay together in this one. Was there any one plot that kind of stood out to you? Was there one plot that didn't work?
Annoyingly, I didn't really vibe with the Star-Lord and the Ego plot. I was kind of in for a bit. I like the scene when they make the ball and they're throwing the ball at each other. That was a really nice thing. But the whole time you are thinking, this guy's going to fuck him over.
Yeah,
like you're thinking that, but you're kind of like semi-enjoying it. You're kind of going like, they did a good job of making those... Kurt Russell did a really good job of like selling the... Oh, I really am your dad. And, well, not I'm really am your dad, but this is all for the right reasons. This and the other. I wasn't very keen on the room that they were in, and he was showing them the demonstrations. Kind of felt a bit like you were in the Natural History Museum, and I don't know. There was a bit too much of that going on. I know there had to be a lot of like exposition. Is that the term that you guys use?
Well, if it's a museum, exhibition's probably right.
Yeah, exhibition. Yeah. But yeah, there felt like there was a lot of that obviously coming from Kurt Russell, and then when it, that kind of just fell apart for me towards the end with the. We'll get into all of that.
We sure
the other
will.
plots, the other ones I probably were into a bit more like a. But yeah, we'll get into it.
So yeah, Rob, all these separate plots, does it harm the structure of the film at all, or does it all work pretty cohesively?
I can definitely see why people wouldn't gel with it. Especially when you're sort of you're expecting that formula that the first one, even us who have seen it before, was definitely expecting something more like the first film.
Yeah,
I could definitely see why people have issues with it, but it's never been something that's bothered me. I'll be honest. Them all separating just sort of showed that things weren't all wrapped up, nice and neat at the end of the last film, that they still have a lot of shit going on. And you got that moment where, with the great needle drop of Fleetwood Mac's The Chain, Peter turning to Rocket and being like, what's your goal here? To get everyone to hate you because it's working. And just, you can see there's these sort of all these dysfunctions they still need to work through. And obviously not to sound like Vin Diesel in another franchise, but that is what family is all about.
It was very much that again.
I think I really don't have an issue with the different threads. I think they all work great. I like spending time with the characters regardless. So,
of course,
yes, it'd be nice to see them all together, but I like what we got.
It's very clear that I'm a massive, massive fan of this film. I adore this film so much. I will say that the plot with Taserface, there's a couple of scenes where we deal with him where I'm like, I don't know if I find this either enjoyable or funny, or maybe it doesn't quite work for me. But that is literally maybe the only sort of grumbles I have with the film, is a couple of scenes around there. Taserface. But let's talk Yondu. Yondu gets a lot more to do in this film. So, Colin, was James Gunn right to bring essentially this secondary character to the forefront, or would you have preferred, like you said, for this film to focus more on our core group of heroes instead of Yondu?
I actually really enjoyed what they did with Yondu's character in this. It was probably one of the highlights of the film, which then really frustrated me when they killed him off at the end.
They did.
I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not being funny, Vision's still alive in this. Like, what are we
You
doing?
and Vision.
Yeah, but I mean, like, look, I'm all about killing off characters in film and TV shows. Go ahead. But let's get rid of some of the boring ones before we start killing. Like, Yondu, man, how cool is he with the arrow and the whistling? Like, that shit was great.
Cool.
Like, I want to see more of that. And now it's just like, oh, we'll hype this dude up and then we'll just kill him off in front of you at the end of the film. And meanwhile, Vision's doing a fucking crossword somewhere, being a boring bastard. He's like, I'll be popping back up again, won't I? Let's start getting rid of some of these borers, man.
Oh, I love it.
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Good.
So, wow, Rob, how was Michael Rooker for you in this? And much like I think Colin, are you sad to see him go?
I am sad to see him go, but I also think what with the end of the film, I can't fathom to think what it would have been had Yondu flown up to the ship with Peter, and they all just sort of sat around a table going, "We're the Guardians now."
Yeah,
The Ravagers still hate me, and I think you needed that for Rocket to realise his thing.
yeah,
And for all those other arcs regarding family, including Nebula and Gamora, for all those things to slot into place. And it's a shame, because Yondu is the man.
he is. He's Mary Poppins, y'all.
He's Mary Poppins, y'all. He's Mary Poppins cool.
Hell yeah, he's cool. Love it. We'll definitely get onto that.
Yeah, I think Michael Rooker is brilliant. And there's so much he does that's nuanced in it as well. When we first see him and he's just, clearly been having it off with some sex bot. And he's just looking out the window and it's like, he's clearly not a happy man.
Yeah.
Just this vulnerable, lonely mess.
Yeah, that place looked really interesting where they were at.
Yeah.
Howard the fuck was
in that
there.
world.
Howard the Duck
Yeah,
was
I
there.
did pick up on that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So Taserface imprisons Rocket and Yondu aboard the latter's ship and executes his loyalists by releasing them into the vacuum of space. Nebula leaves to find and kill Gamora, whom she blames for the torture inflicted on her by their adoptive father, Thanos. While imprisoned, Rocket and Yondu bond. Groot and Kraglin, the latter having never intended to start the mutiny, free Rocket and Yondu, and they use Yondu's arrow to destroy the ship and its crew as they escape. But Taserface warns the Sovereign before dying. So, Colin, we've already mentioned her, but yet another character is brought in from the sidelines and given a hell of a lot more to do, and this time Gamora's sister, Nebula. So did James Gunn overstuff this film with too many plots and characters? Were you invested in sort of Nebula's journey, her arc in this film? Because, he definitely gives her, in my opinion, quite a strong arc, in that arc being, her very complicated relationship with Gamora.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed this plot line mainly because I think the main thing to take away from it is that you got a little bit more of an idea of just how crazy this Thanos guy is, right? When you start to hear about like what he did, to those guys when they were brought up, and so like that was a cool point from that. Like it's good to finally start being told a little bit more about Thanos and how powerful he is, because up until this point, I've seen him floating around in the sky on a chair and on the wall, like being spoken to by someone. So that was a cool thing. I like the fact that the rivalry was, not the rivalry, but when they had their moments of like one versus another, one-on-one, I liked how it's, again, Rob has mentioned it a lot, is that it's all family-based stuff going on here and the different relationships and the dysfunctions between siblings and stuff like that. And I think the way those two attacked each other was a really good representation of that on screen. Yeah. Because it was very like aggressive, visceral, like when she goes smashing into the cave, she's just going for it, man. Like she's not thinking about anything. And then the other one's got that giant like gun that's fallen off. Yeah. Like, and that's just all out rage coming out in those moments. And I did enjoy that. I enjoyed that part. Yeah.
Yeah, they're certainly very damaged based on what Thanos has done to them. Yeah, for sure. Are you looking forward to seeing Nebula again? Do you think she's going to pop up again?
I mean, this is another thing that I felt throughout this film. Is like, what's going on in this franchise at the moment? Like, I'm really struggling to like to envision a point where all of this starts to make sense together.
Where it's all going to culminate in
Yeah,
together.
because to me, this, I mean, and obviously I don't know, but this film kind of felt like a bit of a filler. It was like a bit of character development, but I'm not really too sure how much of any of this is going to actually trickle on. We didn't get anything to do with the friggin' stones that they're finding, which we had a bit of that in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of figured out a few things, but I don't know, it just didn't really feel like there was enough. So I don't know, I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of these guys, but I have no idea when and where.
Interesting.
You guys can't be smiling like that the whole time. Do you realize how annoying this is?
I know.
So honestly, I want to catch up with you guys so I don't have to have this.
You've not got
these moments
far
where I'm
to go.
talking about a film and you two are just like smiling from ear to ear. Like, I don't know if I'm talking completely out of my arse or if I'm like onto something.
Who knows?
You're not going to tell me either way.
Next
No, of
time,
course we're
baby.
So, Rob, in my opinion, I think Karen Gillan, personally for me, struggled with some of the material in Volume 1. I remember the first time I saw Guardians Volume 1, and I as much as I'm a fan of Karen Gillan, I maybe thought that she was miscast, but I did change my opinion for Volume 2. How was she in Volume 2 for you?
I think she's great. I mean, you know me, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan as well. And yeah, I rate Karen Gillan quite high. She's brilliant. But especially in this film, I think it does a good thing of sort of making you look at her and Gamora. And the whole first film, you're like, you forget that Gamora's a villain as well. You know, she's sent on a mission to get the stone for Thanos just as much as Nebula is.
Yep.
But this film does a great thing of sort of making you realise, okay, Gamora effectively defeated her sister all these times, knowing what that would mean for her.
Yeah.
So it paints her in a different light and also paints Nebula in a different light that just works. It like Colin said, and it also, I agree with you. I think the first film, everything she's saying, she's saying through gritted teeth, and it can feel a bit hammy. Oh, Gillenham.
I'll get the old pig sounds back out for that.
Dig them out, Colin.
Yeah, I'll get that.
But yeah, in this film, it sort of has that context of knowing her past more, and it feels more like just being, in agony, and sort of everything is like pushing through the trauma to say anything, really. I think, she's fantastic in it.
Yeah, and I agree. I also think the writing for her is a lot stronger. Instead of just being Thanos' angry daughter, which is quite one-dimensional, we get to delve a lot deeper into what makes Nebula tick here. So, like we've already mentioned, we learn about her trauma. We now at least sort of understand why she has this hatred for Gamora as well. And these Guardians films, they're all about family, essentially, aren't they? They're all about, just how important maybe love and respect is in your families, whether, they're the family you're born with or, the family you're given. Yeah, I like her a lot in this. She's still Thanos' angry daughter at the end, but at least this time we can at least empathise.
There's that great line when they are fighting in that scene that Colin mentioned, which I'm sure we'll get to. But she says, "You wanted to win and I wanted a sister." Just that's a great line. And she nails it, yeah.
Love it. So, Ego, a god-like celestial that manipulated the matter around its consciousness to form his home planet, explains that he projected a humanoid guise to travel the universe and discover a purpose, eventually falling in love with Quill's mother, Meredith. Ego hired Yondu to collect the young Quill after Meredith's death, but the boy was never delivered, and Ego has been searching for him ever since. He then teaches Quill to manipulate the celestial power. Colin, you've already kind of touched upon it. I don't know if you've got any more to add, but it's always one of my highlights of these episodes, villain time. How was Ego as the villain for you, and where does he sort of rank so far?
See, this is another thing that, like, I don't want to say this because it feels like I'm shitting on everything all the time, but, like, it feels like MCU have struggled a bit with villains.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
I mean, I only say this, right, because of the 2 bonus episodes we've done recently, right? Because the villains, the villain in Spider-Man 1, Green Goblin, and Doc Ock in the second one, to me, they're miles above even Loki in the MCU for me. And like, I think because again, I don't really watch any films, so at the moment I'm only watching whatever films you really tell me to watch. So it's like, as soon as I had that comparison of like what a villain could be in a superhero movie, it sort of made me feel a little like, is there going to be one, like a big one? Is there going to be one where I'm like, this is the guy, this is the guy? Because it wasn't for me in this one. Ego wasn't the guy.
Yep. I remember, I think it may have even been around the release of Guardians Volume 2, or maybe just before it. There was a couple of articles that did say, does Marvel have a villain problem?
Oh, really?
Some people picked up on it, that maybe they you know, they're not doing as much as they could be with the villains, you know, and I don't know. I guess looking back at some previous movies, sometimes they get it really, really right. Like Zemo for me in Civil War, to me, he's top tier, and he's sometimes you even question, is he a villain? I love that about him as well. But then you look back at Doctor Strange and something like that, and Caecilius could be better. And then obviously some of the previous stuff really doesn't work. Like whatever that elf is called in Thor: Dark World,
Malekith.
Malekith, yeah. But I mean, like, you guys can talk on this, and I know it's a hard thing to say, but also, like, Heath Ledger as the Joker is sort of like, that's like, you know, that's top of the fucking charts. Do you think, is there a point throughout this franchise to where it's at now currently? Is there ever a villain that's up there on that level? I know it might be a hard one to answer, because I know you guys like adore everything in the MCU, but I mean, or at least known as being like, okay, this guy's the Joker of the MCU. He's the best villain ever. Or is that Loki?
I'll let Rob take it as well. But for me, there's one villain coming up soonish that I think isn't as out there as the Joker, or as much as a large performance, but in terms of what that role means, I think is a wonderful, wonderful villain. Okay. And then also, there's another villain that is, for me, an all-timer.
Okay, that's good. I'm excited for it then.
Rob?
I'd agree.
Brilliant.
I'm trying not to...
Yeah, spoilers.
I'm pretty sure I can read your mind, and the two that you're thinking are the two that I'm thinking.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good though. That's good to know.
Yeah. Good. And Rob, I know that you're a big fan of Kurt Russell. What is it like seeing him in the MCU?
Oh, I love Kurt Russell. The Thing is one of my favourite films.
Oh,
it is my favourite horror film of all time.
It's up there, isn't it?
Big Trouble, Little China.
Yeah.
Whoop whoop. That's great. So I guess like that was one of my childhood films, Big Trouble, Little China. So he was like my childhood hero in terms of the kind of films I was watching. He's like that kind of action star. So seeing him in this role where he's got that kind of, you want to trust him, even though, like Colin said,
yeah, of course,
he is not a good dude. The man's name is Ego. Like, nothing good can come from him. He just got that Santa beard, and everything he says just is so charming. I think that the whole stuff about him spunking over the universe isn't really as effective to me as the sort of the villainy and evil that he does to Peter and his personal connection to it. I don't really care about these other planets sort of having these plants blooming and going mad and stuff. That stuff just feels completely separate.
That
I think it wasn't really needed. But I love all the stuff with him and Peter.
I would agree with that. There are some great moments where they're having the dialogue gets really deep in places. I did enjoy those moments. I'm not going to lie
when
about
Peter
that.
questions Ego why he left, and he still sort of worms his way, saying, "Oh well, if I was to come back, it would be too painful."
Yeah.
He still, finds a way to try and almost like worm his way back into his affections just to use him. Yeah,
I love Kurt Russell too. I mean, the camera loves this man and always has. He's a proper movie star, isn't he?
And a Disney boy.
And yes,
he started like as a child, didn't he, in Disney films?
Yeah, he's been doing this a lifetime, and you can tell he oozes charisma and likability. So like you boys have said, immediately we kind of really like him as Ego. And, you'd be an idiot not to also immediately think, well, here's our villain. But, even when the film does eventually turn around and have him become the villain, he's still having so much fun. And it really feels like he's got relishing the chance to be in one of these sort of big, silly, fantastic superhero movies. Colin, I ask you about every single villain as well. Are we seeing Ego again?
Maybe in the ballroom. Am I right? Doing those big deals?
My first thought would be probably not, but I do feel like this talk of Celestials and I feel like maybe there's something, because I'm just trying to figure out a way how this does end up interlinking with what else is going on, and it has to be through this sort of planetary war that's going to end up happening. And the fact that he sort of claims to be a planet or a god or whatever the hell you want to categorize him as in this, it wouldn't surprise me, but I'm not like holding my breath, and I'm more than happy to never see him again as Ego. But I do really like Kurt Russell. I'm not shitting on that guy. I think he's a great actor. I just want to throw that out there.
Let's also talk Mantis then. So a new addition to the cast, like I said, played here by Pom Klementieff. A worthy addition to the team, Colin, because I think she's a Guardian by the end of the film, or was that character maybe a little bit too out there for your tastes?
No, I liked it. I thought she was cool. I liked the relationship that she built throughout the film with it was with Drax, right? Yeah. That was really cool. I thought like that scene between her and Drax when he's he's opening up a bit. I tell you what, I said there wasn't much character development on him, but that scene was great. And the fact that like he's clearly out of tears for all of the pain he's had, but the minute she touches him, she starts crying the tears. That was some good shit right there. Yeah, I was into that for
storytelling.
sure. Really was. And I think that kind of element added to this film was good. It was a nice sort of like emotional look into some of the characters done well through her, and obviously what she does at the back end of the film to kind of help out in the scenes. Yeah, it works. Yeah. It worked for me.
I love one of her introductory scenes as well when they're playing that game of her revealing everyone's deepest secrets. Yeah. And she reveals that Peter is obviously in love with Gamora, and Drax is like, do me. Just embarrass me. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Same to you, Rob, because the original creator of Mantis, Steve Englehart, wasn't actually a massive fan of James Gunn's portrayal of Mantis here. But does she work in the film?
She works for the film universe. Yeah, she's completely different in the comics.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because in the comics, she's from Earth. And she's sort of subjected to an alien race known as the Kree, who give her, these powers. And James Gunn just thought, well, we've already got someone from Earth who in this film has powers. That just doesn't really interest me. And I think it's great that she's lived her life as effectively like a flea that's allowed to live on a dock. I think she puts it, didn't she? She goes from being sort of necessary and something that's tolerated to something that's, someone that's welcomed into a group like the Guardians. I think that makes much more sense than for this film and for this universe than the original sort of comic universe. And it doesn't negate the original. No. People seem to think that do something different in the film and that book just erases, just turns to dust and you can't access it anymore. But it's still there. Just fucking read it, mate. Go over it.
Brilliant. So Nebula arrives at Ego's planet and tries to kill Gamora, but the pair reach an uneasy alliance when they discover a cavern filled with skeletal remains. Ego reveals to Quill that in his travels he planted seedlings on thousands of worlds that can terraform into new extensions of himself, but only the power of 2 Celestials can activate them. To that end, he impregnated countless women and hired Yondu to collect the children, but killed them all when they failed to access the celestial power. At first, under Ego's influence, Quill fights back when Ego reveals that he gave Meredith the brain tumour that killed her due to the distraction she posed, forcing Ego to parasitically, oh Jesus, draw Quill's energy to activate the seedlings, which begin to consume every world. And so we get sort of like a nice little twist, I think, when we discover that the tumour inside of Meredith Quill's brain was placed there by Ego. Now, I'll ask you a question I've asked a couple of times as well, Colin, and I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be. But was this too dark? This is a film about, like we said, talking raccoons and the cutest baby trees you've ever laid your eyes on. Does it tonally fit to suddenly have this twist about cancer and tumours, etc.?
I mean, I don't want to even say this because I sound horrible, but I love that kind of dark stuff in movies. Like, I don't know. I just think that's like, it just gives you way more reasons and not like the villain. Like, because it's just, the more you up it, the more you're going to be like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
And that makes you think, fuck this guy. Do you know what I mean?
You killed my mother and squashed my Walkman.
Yeah.
Which is a line.
Yeah, it is a line, yeah.
And it's the fact that Walkman is his mum,
Yes.
effectively.
Yeah.
So he
Yes.
killed her twice.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
That's a lovely...
Do you think that's too dark? Do you guys think it's too dark doing that?
No, I think the moment lands perfectly. I think that it all works in that scene so much, and I think it's one of the highlights of the film. It's one of the more memorable moments of the film as well. So same to you then, Rob, because it is quite a tonal shift. This suddenly the inclusion of Ego killing Meredith. Could he maybe still be as effective as a villain without that moment, or is it needed?
it's definitely needed. It's what you need to sort of see that he doesn't think in any way, shape, or form like a human. He's completely alien to Peter, and it's like that he's got to go because of it. And I remember it kind of upsets me that Colin doesn't get to see things in the cinema. Or I didn't see him at the time, because I remember sitting, and when that bit happened, the screen we were in was like a vacuum. Everyone just breathed in. It was like, and you could sense it. Everyone was like, "Fuck!" You just
See, I need to be around those moments. That's what I need. We're getting there.
Because it was powerful shit. Everyone in the room was like, knew what that meant for the character and was in.
Yes.
And I think it was brilliant.
Yeah.
But I think there's a bit earlier in the film that I was watching it at this time, and I thought, oh, Colin's going to be rubbing his knees to this. When they are ejecting all the Ravagers out to space, and you just see him slowly, like his face slowly turn to bloody ice,
Pretty messed up.
and then there's like a sea of them. I was like, well, this is a Disney film.
Yeah, that was a good bit, actually.
I did think, well, Colin's loving it.
It's the 5. We finally got the 5. What did you think, Colin? It was a mess.
I knew I had to really think about how to approach this episode. I've been thinking about it.
I do
quite
have a
bit
question for you coming up as well, Colin. Something I've just thought of. You texted us about something earlier on, and I want to know what you meant by it, but we'll get there.
today. Okay.
So, Mantis, obviously Ego's naive empath servant, grows close to Drax and warns him of Ego's plan. Gamora and Nebula also learn of the plan as Rocket, Yondu, Groot and Kraglin arrive. The reunited Guardians travel to Ego's brain at the planet's core, during which Yondu reveals that he kept Quill to spare him from the fate of Ego's other progeny. As they come under attack from the Sovereign's drones, Rocket makes a bomb using the stolen batteries, which Groot then plants onto the brain. Quill fights Ego with his newfound celestial powers to distract him long enough for the other Guardians and Mantis to escape. The bomb explodes, killing Ego and disintegrating the planet. Quill loses his celestial powers soon after Ego's death, and Yondu sacrifices himself to save Quill and dies in the vacuum of space. Final battle time. Now, Colin, believe it or not, this is your 15th final battle sequence in an MCU movie. This is your 15th film. And that's also not including anything we've watched for bonus episodes as well. So, in terms of final battle in this film, does James Gunn keep it feeling fresh, or has final battle fatigue started to hit in?
I really didn't enjoy this. This was sort of where the film completely lost me, to be honest. Ego, the sort of, I'm struggling a little bit. You guys might be able to explain it a bit more of what is the actual point of what Ego is trying to accomplish as like the end game, because he's a planet and he's creating these sort of eggs to try and get the second person to then help him let Smurf jizz cover every planet in the universe. So then he then becomes those planets. But if that's the case, then you're already a planet, mate. The universe is a big spot. You don't need to be around anyone. Just chill. Like, because once you've completed that task, all you are then is just lots of planets floating around in the universe. So I didn't really enjoy that, like, because I just thought, like, I don't understand what the end game is here. I understand, and I know Rob will probably talk on it a lot more, is that this isn't really about that. It's, it's the father-son dynamic and all of that. But it still has to make enough sense for me to care about. And then when he turns into the core and the whole, so much went on in that fight scene. And there were some good moments. There were some good moments of action and stuff like that. But it kind of turned into this weird, like, PlayStation cutscene at times. And then when he's it's another face on some rocks with these weird tentacles flopping about. And like, I don't know, man, it completely lost me. That at that moment in the film was where I was like, what is going on here?
Okay.
Like, what is going on? And that's where I just felt like, for me, the film was just a bit of a miss. It was a bit of a miss. But there was still a lot I loved about it.
So then, Rob, over to you. Can you help Colin out a little bit?
I'm actually thinking on it and thinking, I'm not quite sure the film does say why he wants all those planets to be him.
Okay, so maybe is it a Next Time Baby?
I'm not sure it is the Next Time Baby.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think if it is mentioned, because obviously I watched it this time with the commentary on, so I didn't really hear it.
My thinking about it is, Ego doesn't actually look like Kurt Russell, does he?
Sure, of course.
Ego is literally this being.
It started as like a brain, and then it formed into this planet, and then he realised he wanted to figure out if there was a point to life, and then he went to Earth.
It requires, it hurts the brain to almost think about it. That don't think of Ego as a person, think of it as like almost like a parasite. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
And if he wanted to create almost like this hive mind where all he wants to do is just grow and grow and grow and spread and spread and spread, almost like a virus. That's how I look at it.
I get that.
Or a fuckboy.
Yes.
But then him going and sort of searching out for life and what he finds on Earth with what's on it, the mum, like what that's then you're kind of blurring the line between, well, then he isn't just a parasite, is he? Because he has a consciousness, and he's already, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see it.
But I think he's got to do what he's got to do in order to get.
Unless there's something higher above, where like if he manages to do this, it turns, like. But I mean, I'm not being a knob saying that.
You're not.
Am I?
No.
Okay. No.
Because if I am, then say I'll take it.
So
I don't think you are.
Any other any thoughts on the final battle, Rob? How does it work for you?
I like that it's kind of the whole planet's trying to kill them. Really, I think those cutaways, like I say, I almost forget they're there. I don't think they're that important. Maybe they should be, but I just sort of really get invested in what Ego, the singular planet trying to kill them, means for each of those characters. And like Colin said, there's a lot of fun to be had. The Sovereign just acts as like almost like a sort of commentary on the Horde sort of army that we get in Avengers films. It's like they're literally not there.
No.
They're all just behind a computer screen somewhere else, which I think is quite a funny touch. But they really are just there to be like annoying and in the way while they're trying to achieve all these different goals.
Yeah.
Like another obstacle. I love the whole section with Baby Groot and the button and the bomb. And how that pays off the earlier joke of them trying to get him to get the fin.
Yeah.
So
The
funny.
moment where he comes back with a severed thumb and they do not want to ask any questions is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And sorry, this is going off what you were talking about, but where he puts the Ravager badge, he's like, no,
on
not
his
that.
head. Yeah.
He thinks you want him to wear it as a hat.
Oh, see, that's what I mean. There were so many good moments in this film. That's what I'm talking about.
So yeah, this final sequence I do really enjoy it. I think there's a lot of good character moments. It does feel a bit like a mad scramble to get back to that ship, essentially, to blow up the place and get to the ship. And that can feel a bit messy and a bit like, what the fuck am I looking at? Mm-hmm. So I agree with Colin there, but I do love it.
I liked the sort of mechanical firing balls that are on the ship, and they kind of move around and create these.
It's like a mining ship, isn't it?
Yeah, like that was really nice. Yep. Some of those moments were cool.
There's so many moments in this final battle sequence that I do really, really love. You get the very similar to the Avengers style shot of all of our heroes standing in a circle, the big epic music as the camera revolves around, and then something just comes flying through the air and knocks Mantis in the face.
Yeah, what the hell was that?
God knows. But then
it just sort of...
It's the half second after it knocks her out. Drax is like, Mantis, look out!
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. Like Rob said, the baby Groot bit with the bomb, absolutely brilliant. I love the dialogue. They actually used this little scene, Colin, even though it's in the final battle sequence, I think as the first trailer of the film. It was just that scene of, I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. No, and stuff like that. Brilliant. Yeah. And then even the conversation after that of, does anyone have any, tape for the death button? I love that. And Quill flies off and you just hear him off screen. Like, I think it's, Drax, do you have any tape?
Oh, yeah.
He goes, yeah, Scotch tape would work. Well, then why ask if Scotch tape would work if you don't have any?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Then we get the Mary Poppins Jarl scene. Great. And the second use of Fleetwood Mac's The Chain in that sequence as well. That really, really works for me as well.
Ow, my nipples. Just Drax's chafing nipples. I like as well that whole thing with the Scotch tape and all that stuff further solidifies that it's not about the battle. Yeah, there's all these sovereign ships they're fighting off and all this stuff going on outside of that little nook where Rocket's telling him about the bomb. But you like that opening sequence with this massive space battle that's happening and you're just watching Groot dance. It's all about the smaller character moments, I think.
That kind of shows you what the film is, doesn't it?
The battles in the background, we focus on our Guardians. Yeah, I completely agree.
I really love it. I love when Peter, they're in the ship and like Rocket's like, you're so messed up. And he's like, of course I'm messed up. That's my freaking dad. And he's like, this big sort of noodly space brain.
Yeah.
So then, Colin, we didn't get you glassy-eyed at all during Yondu's death scene?
Oh, 100%, mate. This is the closest I've come.
Oh!
I got close. Dude, I said I was gutted.
Okay, cool.
Yondu's the man in this film. I was pretty gutted. But from that point on, I was enjoying it. Like, I thought they did that whole send-off for him really well.
Yes, let's get on to the send-off. So, having reconciled with Gamora, Nebula still chooses to leave and resume her quest to kill Thanos by herself. The Guardians hold a funeral for Yondu, which Kraglin and dozens of Ravager ships attend, acknowledging Yondu's sacrifice and accepting him as a Ravager again. During the funeral, Gamora admits maybe she does love Peter and they become a couple, and we end the film with Rocket watching the funeral as a tear rolls down his cheek. Personally, Christ, what an emotional last few minutes. And I think there's quite a few things to unpack as well. Where do we start? I think for me, strangely, one of the things that affects me the most here, and I'll be honest, on our rewatch for this podcast, it did make me cry, is Kraglin's reaction to watching all of the Ravagers come back for Yondu's funeral. It's such like a raw and almost feral reaction. And for me, it's beautiful. So, Colin, your thoughts on these last few rather emotional moments?
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there, mate. They were definitely emotional. It's another thing that made me realise that I must be actually getting into these a little bit, because normally that wouldn't really, it would kind of go over my head a bit. It might also just be that it's done in a very, very good way, like from a filmmaker's point of view, so it's done its job there. I think for me, just the moment of that shot, like a bird's eye view shot of him, and they're putting the cloth over his eyes, like, you know, that was where you're like, oh man, this is going to be a deep scene to take.
Obviously, they
Starts rubbing his knees.
Yeah, those knees are going.
With the inclusion of obviously father and son as well, the song, which is it works wonderfully. And to you, Rob, I know you're just as soppy as me.
Yeah, it gets me. I was getting sort of goosebumps, even on this rewatch, from the moment when Rocket says "Not without you," and he's got that connection because he sees himself in Yondu, and that really works. And that whole thing when he said "Welcome to the Guardians of the Galaxy," but he didn't say "freaking."
Oh, I love that bit.
That's it. Yeah, that was good.
Everything, like the death scene as well, is really well done. I think Chris Pratt's best performance. His acting in that moment is so real.
He's so frustrated as well, isn't he?
And Yondu just patting him on the side of the face and gives this little smile. And like the commentary, audio commentary, facts.
Is this just a second one?
I was going to say it's
not been many.
Quiet.
I'll be honest, yeah. I've just been sort of sitting back and enjoying the chat. Yeah, James Gunn said, and he sort of, that smile that Yondu does is his favourite bit. And it's such a little moment. But then he sort of made the point of saying, yeah, you see Yondu, or even Michael Rooker as a whole, in roles, you see him smiling when he's laughing, normally maniacally. But do you see him smile like he does in that moment? Very rarely, if you do.
He's got the beautiful line as well, isn't he? I think it's quite famous now. He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Really, really good. And I'll get into why the certain elements of that end scene get me emotional when we come to my ranking. But
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. There's so many nice bits. I love when they're having the send off and we get an "I am Groot," and he's like, "He did call you Twig." It's so lovely because it's the kind of thing I was suddenly thinking about today. It's the kind of thing my son would say. You know, like there's not aware that someone's died and something mad is going on, something big and adult, and some as big and complex as someone passing away. Would say something like, "Oh, they used to call me Sport or whatever." Like they would just say like something like, "Oh, they were nice."
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like a very baby or child or toddler thing to say, like, he called me Twig. While all this other bad stuff's going on.
Yeah.
It's just really good. Quill sharing music with Groot as well.
Yeah.
And Yondu's music.
Yes, of course.
So it's effectively, the first film's about his mum sharing music with him, and now he's sharing it with a baby that he is part of a family with. It all works.
Yeah, it's
very, very
the rocket
good.
stuff really gets me. It's very, very brave and completely unorthodox for us to end one of these superhero films with one of our heroes almost looking at the camera and crying. And you've touched on it, Rob, in that he definitely can kind of saw himself in Yondu as well. And it's just it chokes me up talking about it as well. Oh God, I'm such a geek. Just like he's a bloody CGI raccoon. And he's looking out the window and he says the line, "They still came," even though he was mean and yelled at them a lot. And just as soon as as you're thinking, actually, who's he talking about here? He then helps us out and he says, and he stole batteries he didn't need. Absolutely beautiful. But then we get a lovely little laugh in that scene as well of Mantis looking at the Ravager funeral and all the fireworks, and she says it's beautiful. And we suddenly, what we think is a bit of character growth from Drax as he comes to her and says, "It is."
Oh, yeah.
And so are you. on the inside. It's,
I prefer a woman with more meat on her bones.
just thinking about being intimate with you.
He definitely had some of the funniest moments in this one. Do
he's
you not
so
think?
good.
Drax?
Yeah, he's great. That last bit, that last shot. I get worried about saying this sort of stuff because I think it's going to put Colin off what we got coming up. But personally, for me, it's probably one of my favourite endings of an MCU film. It's up there, top 3 at least.
Oof.
Yeah, like you say, his realisation of he didn't chase them away,
Yeah,
and that
they're still there.
he's got that family is a brilliant moment to end on. I was the same with Ant-Man. They ended on just a family all together. I like that rather than it being some big bombastic sort of the planet's exploded, let's have a big Star Wars like celebration for them and give them medals. No, I liked that it was this, even that, Quill and Gamora didn't kiss.
No, they don't.
Like James Gunn talked about it on the audio commentary facts. That he purposefully went against his instinct to have that there. That is something a bit deeper than that. Something more unspoken.
Of course.
As he said, I think it's an amazing ending.
Yeah, love it. Boys, any final thoughts or anything I've missed that you want to go through?
There is a little something, George, and I'm a bit upset that I missed it. I've let myself down.
Oh, no.
I've let our fans down. And I've let a certain man down. Excelsior! Stan Lee, baby. He was a big thing in this, wasn't he? So there's been a long-running fan theory that Stan Lee's reason he appears all these different characters is because he is like a god in the... And I think in the comics, he is God. It's like the sort of a meta joke that he is like the writer. But these characters that stood around and the bald guys with the white eyes, they're known as Watchers. So what they do is observe the universe. They literally they can't get involved, but they just observe. And this is implying that Stan is like an informant for them, telling them all this stuff that he's seen as these different cameos. I thought that was a sneaky one.
It's very nice.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
I like
it's
this
a
one.
good one, for sure.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up, when George played one of his infamous games in which he was saying, would you see this person being in the MCU? Colin, was you surprised to see Stallone?
I was surprised, actually. Yeah, I was quite surprised. I don't really know how necessary he was to the whole film, but it was kind of fun to see him on screen.
Yandel, you killed children. You killed them. You turned them blind eye because of the money.
That's pretty good.
It was sort of more just like an extended cameo, really, weren't it?
Yeah.
Did you first
but
notice
he's-
it when he actually walked in on the film, or did you notice him in the opening credits?
Whenever he first popped up, I
okay,
noticed
because
it. I
when
think it was
Groot's
quite
doing his
early
little
on.
dance at the beginning, it does say with Sylvester Stallone.
Oh no, yeah, I did see that, and I thought, did I just see that right? And then obviously when he pops up, and then he comes back towards the end as
Yeah.
well, doesn't he, for like a very mini scene.
He did it. Yeah.
I wish people could see the visual of
Yeah,
you doing
he's,
this.
he's, pulling,
impression.
he's pulling a face whilst he's doing it. It's quite good.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the ratings then. So, Colin, kick off the ratings, please. What would you give this out of 5? You know what? I had hope earlier on, but okay, it's
I
fine.
know. I had hope.
Yeah.
I had hope.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I mean, I think even from the way that we've discussed the film throughout this episode of the podcast, like, I've been agreeing with a lot of what you guys have been liking in the film. So it kind of really split me down the middle. Because I agree with Rob and you, actually. I agree with both of you. I thought the ending was really good. And it did a fantastic job of, like, you know, tugging on the old emotional heartstrings and stuff. But I just can't get over some of the decisions throughout the film, and it kind of left me with a bit of like oh man, like it kind of felt like that film just needed maybe a bit longer, just to flesh it out a bit. And we haven't even really spoken about the gold people. They've come up a couple of times, but that whole thing was just weird. Like, but then so I have no idea what I'm going to give this as a score. I think I'm just going to go. I mean, considering I would say that these guys are probably my favourite collection of characters in the MCU, I'm not going to go too low, but I think I've made myself clear that I wasn't the biggest fan of the film, so I'm going to give it a 3.5, I think.
3.5 is all right with me.
Interestingly, I'm thinking, I don't think we should ask this every episode, but I think of this film particularly. Do you think a rewatch might change that score?
I was thinking
I definitely do. I think that when I watch all of these films, man, honestly, I think to myself, if I really want to get to know how these are, I need to watch these 3 or 4 times, or maybe not 3 or 4, but a couple of watches. And to be honest, that is a thing that actually makes me negatively score a film, because then how many people that watch these films just casually, people that go to the cinema and watch them, like a percentage of them are just enjoying the switch your brain off action-packed bullshit. Like, they're not keeping up with the story and all of the ins and outs of the MCU the way you guys are. And I feel like a lot of people would probably benefit more if they rewatch these films to really get their head around all of the intricacies of the storylines and how they're all connected and things. And to me, that's a bit of a negative. It's like, well, then they're not doing their job well enough that on the first go, you're kind of keeping up with it. I'm not saying they need to dumb them down. I just think it's like, just maybe throw like 70% of it at us in a film, because there's just so much. Like, I wrote down some quotes from like the first 20 minutes of the film, because I was going to ask you guys if these quotes meant anything. And like, I can't even remember who said them now, but it was like, at one point they're talking about Horns of Freedom, and then they're talking about Colossus of Orgord. Like, is that stuff that I should be like keeping in my brain?
It's kind of Ravager lore. Yeah.
But like, I'm watching these and I'm going, and obviously because we're doing a podcast on it, like I'm watching it and I'm like trying to think, if I hear something, I'm like, right,
this is going to mean something. This is going to mean something.
Exactly. Yeah. And that becomes sort of a little bit exhausting for like a 2.5 hour film, because I've probably remembered, or not remembered, but I've made tons of notes on this one and I've barely even scratched them, because it's clearly stuff that isn't like overly important to what we needed to get out of it. So like, again, that kind of has a bit of a negative impact. The way I'm consuming these films is unlike how anyone else has consumed them.
Yeah.
I think in the world,
like, so I'm watching these to try and be like, is this something? Is that something?
Yeah.
So like, I'm not watching them how a lot of people probably are. Like Stacey, for instance, she's not fucking pausing it and writing down notes about scenes when she watches these films. She just puts them on, enjoys them, and probably then goes, oh, I'll catch up with the next one when it comes out. So yeah, it's a strange one. That's probably why my ratings are going to be a bit all over the place. Yeah. And on a second rewatch, I'm sure most of these ratings would probably be different, which is quite interesting.
I think even from what an expectations, because like with this film, a lot of people and yourself were expecting it to be more like the opening scene. And then,
but also, like, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 for me is the top dog so far. So it's like, that is the one. That's it. I think I've given a few 4.5s, but to me, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is always at the top of that. Like, it's going to take a lot to reach that. That was close to a 5. That was close to a 5. So
interesting.
Very, very interesting. I like it. So, Rob, your rating of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
I'm going to preface this, right? So that end song, Father and Son, right? I mean, it's obviously going to push buttons for anyone that's had any kind of relationship with their dad, positive, negative, or anyone who is a dad. But I have this is going to be a tangent. Right, so a while back, a few years ago, we was at a family wedding. I won't go into too many details, but there was a member of the family who was being unkind to my mother, who really shouldn't be unkind to her because she's the kindest, most selfless person, and made a point of saying goodbye to everyone in a line of people and purposefully ignored my mum. So I've gone up to him and said, I used to look up to you. Just be a bigger person and say goodbye. That's a nice thing to do, regardless of whether you mean it. Purposefully being mean, not needed.
Yep.
Makes you the bad person. And after that, because there was a lot of members of my family, my father included, who were very angry at the fact that my mum was being treated this way and didn't have such a calm reaction and wanting to, start a fight with this member of the family. Obviously, no fight broke out. It's a wedding. Everyone was on their best behaviour. Mm-hmm. But we was driving home and father and son came on. I'm sat in the front seat, my dad's driving, and he gets halfway through the song and he just taps me on my knee, says nothing. And he just smiles and nods at me. Now, James Gunn does not know that in any way, shape or form.
But that must have hit you hard.
He taps into something universal in the theme of fatherhood and being a son and family and the complex nature of it and the complex nature of people, even if that complex nature is in a raccoon and a blue dude with a mohawk.
Yep.
He taps into something really universal. And for that reason,
I give it a 2.
I'm giving it 5.
You give it a 5.
Oh, you stepped on that so hard.
Yeah, no.
Jeez. Oh,
That's amazing.
that's great, man.
There is
That
so
is.
much stuff in it that, like Colin said, I can't disagree with. There's stuff in it that doesn't work. But for an emotional reason, I connect with it in such a way that, I have to give it a 5.
That's the beauty of all this stuff, man.
I'm sorry for shitting on the end of your thing then.
Well, you better throw
You
this
stepped
trivia,
all over,
mate.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's coming for you hard in that trivia.
That was wonderful, and you made me very glassy-eyed, Rob. That was beautiful. I can't remember what I gave the first Guardians as a rating, and maybe that's a good thing, as I don't want it to sort of affect my score here. But I'm going to give this a 4.5. Like I said earlier, I think it's a really beautiful and personal movie in sort of like a disguise of a superhero sci-fi epic. It clearly means so much to James Gunn as well. And, looking back, 15 films ago, back at Iron Man, and we're getting films like this, just this weird little 2-hour things. And it's why I love this podcast, and it's why I love the MCU, that we can get entries like this. I do love this film a lot, but as I've said, I can kind of still see why it doesn't work for some people. And I'm really intrigued. Obviously, I'm not saying do it anytime soon, but it's to see, Colin, if you ever come back to this one day, whether now you know the film in terms of its context and where it goes and things like that, and maybe those preconceptions have gone from your mind as to whether that rating does maybe skew a little bit upwards or downwards. It's interesting.
I think, to be honest, mate, I think if I watched any film twice, I'd probably give it different scores on each go. You're always going to pick up on it. And also, my sort of enjoyment of a movie is so dependent on how I'm feeling, like in my day, if I've woken up feeling good or feeling bad or whatever. And like I find it hard to detach myself when I watch a film from the comings and goings of what's going on in my life. So sometimes I'm watching a film and I'm thinking about other things, and I've got other stuff going on, and then that would then negatively impact the way I do view these films. And that has 100% happened on some of these episodes. Even when I go back and mix it, I can hear I'm like, fuck, I wasn't in a good mood that day, and that's clearly why I'm like picking up on all this negative shit. But I would say that today is a big day for me in this podcast. I feel like, as much as I didn't give it a great score, I feel like I'm actually getting excited about this podcast, like way more excited about watching the films, and also like some of the things we've been talking about doing with the podcast and trying to like grow it bigger and get like more of a community based around it. Because I think there's a lot of cool stuff we can do.
The world's our oyster. So after all that, I think it's time for my blood pressure to rise a little bit. But as Rob I think he mentioned to me off pod earlier on, he was like, I bet you're going into this quite relaxed, aren't you? Since seeing as you're above in the rankings.
You've got a lead going on, haven't you?
So we shall see. It's trivia time, baby.
You know too much for your own good.
Now that's what I call using the old head.
Let's go.
Who's going first?
Oh, mate, you can't do this to me every time. I don't remember.
I think I went first last.
Okay. So, James Gunn, when asked what was the hardest song to acquire the rights for Volume 2? It's a very, very easy answer. It was Rob's favourite song of all time, Mr. Blue Sky by ELO. He thought it was actually going to be a very, very easy acquirement of the song, because he actually, for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, asked to use their song, Living Thing. And they agreed straight away. They got the rights, paid the rights for it. Unfortunately, the scene that he used this song in ended up on the cutting room floor for Volume 1. And because he's a busy man, he's currently editing the film. He had to then do all the premieres and all the press junkets. He forgot to maybe let ELO know that it had been cut from the first film. So when he then contacted them again, thinking they were on very good terms, and asked them for the song, he got a very quick and immediate no, which then threw quite a spanner into the works. Turns out there was a little bit of hurt feelings, maybe even a little bit of resentment for them not being told or that song got dropped from the first film. So he actually ended up organising a meeting with them and pleaded/begged and said, I need this film, I need this song, it's so important. And they said, well, what can you do to guarantee us that it's not going to get dropped again? And he said, you open the film, and explained the entire sequence, that Groot would be dancing to it and things like that. He said, it's impossible to get cut. You open the film. They immediately gave him the rights, and he got the film. He got the song.
That's good, man.
It's
Strong.
okay. It's okay.
Good negotiating tactics, though, to secure a song like that. James Gunn knows what he's doing. You don't seem that confident,
No,
though, George.
not with that one. I struggled this week, but I'm in my head too much now. I get
You got PTSD. from the
I
trivia.
panic so much. But the slight lead does comfort me somewhat. But we'll see.
Yeah, you should be.
Post-trivia stress disorders.
Yes.
So, let me gear up.
Oh, he's
wow, there's
stretching.
some
He's
shoulder
stretching.
movement. I had some cracks and clicks. He's getting ready.
Fucking old.
Yeah, exactly.
According to Chris Pratt, the shooting of this film helped him in a big way. Not only deal with, as George mentioned earlier, his ego and perhaps dealing with his rise in stardom since the first film, but also it helped him come to the terms to sort of get over and try and process the death of his own father. Because although he had passed away, say, 2 years before when he was filming Jurassic World in 2014, the actor's gone on record as saying that he didn't really get a chance to, stop and process the death at the time because he's busy filming and, wanted to keep everyone else, separate from it and keep his, everyone's spirits up and not let it sort of affect anyone else's work. But then he said that for James Gunn to write a film which he described as a story about fathers, Pratt was then able to then move on, open up wounds as necessary for certain scenes, like that scene with Yondu, and sort of dealing with any scene with ego, and dealing with the loss of Meredith as well, like his mother in it. He said that it helped him acknowledge the fact there are some, in his words, there are some wounds that can never be completely healed, such as the death of a parent.
Rob's tapping into that emotional side
I'd say it's,
that I've dipped into today for you guys at the back end of this film, and
I think George dipped a little bit into IMDb.
I don't rely on manipulation tactics on my trivia.
Oh, keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going.
He's rubbing his knees.
Right, George, what did you think about Rob's trivia this week?
I thought it was good. Was it trivia? Was it a story? You decide.
Well, I would say that if you know the IMDb listing of George's, it definitely read more as a story when George told it. There's a few sort of embellishments there.
Okay, I already made my mind up. I just like seeing you
Thanks,
two go at each other. Rob gets the point.
Yes, in your
Pulling it
face,
back.
Becky.
I'll allow it.
George, you need to start really like enjoying this victory more because you're living in an anxious mindset.
Yes,
You're ahead.
I know.
And Rob's just pulled it back, and he's got the confidence going on his side.
I don't know
now.
what's going
Enjoy
on.
it, man.
I know.
Enjoy it.
I'm living in the present.
I'm a shrink's.
Got the power now.
I'm a shrink's wet dream, aren't I? I'm in the lead and I'm just having panics. Okay. Yes, no, Rob, I'll give that to you. It was good. I tried to, play that manipulation card, but just to distract Colin, but it didn't work. So
Mine was on IMDb as well.
brilliant.
A bit further down.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If you haven't already, obviously, please review or rate the podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you review us after listening to this specific episode, then maybe at the end of your review, put what song you'd put in your own Guardians-inspired playlist. Colin, here we go again.
Yeah.
What are we doing next?
Haven't even had the chance to think that far ahead with this film today.
Do we stay in space? Do we head back down to Earth? What do you want to do?
I'm honestly a little bit worried
About?
for what's next. Just for what's next, because this phase has been a bit weird for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm just thinking now because you're saying this is like the phase. The phase we're in now is sort of like the one before the big.
This is the last phase.
It's a longer phase.
But it is a.
Is what I was saying.
The others
longer.
were about 6.
Okay,
I think
okay.
phase 1 was 6. Maybe phase 2 was as well. This bigger.
Oh, okay. Because
don't you worry, we're not wrapping it up just yet.
Okay. That's where I was getting a little worried because I'm thinking if we've only got like 5 or 6 films, we're already 3 into this,
so.
right? Into this phase.
Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians.
Okay. So there's still some time. So maybe I'm not quite as worried then. But I have no idea. I mean, we haven't had the new Spider-Man yet because I've got to try and think back to what they're trying to do here because I think we are moving away from Guardians and sort of at least this part of the universe. Maybe a Thor. I don't know, mate. I have no idea.
Well, we are heading back to Earth next, specifically New York City, as we watch Spider-Man: Homecoming. Colin, say bye.
Goodbye.
Rob, say bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Next time we meet, let it be in peace and friendship.
This is as far as you're going to get tonight.
Such valuable stuff. All in a nice work.
Sweet dreams, little friends.
Look out! He's escaping! I fear we have not seen the last of him.
Well, there's a series of credit sequences, shall we say. So I'm not going to do them all individually. I'm just going to talk through them all and then we can just pick apart what we want. I think there's about 5 or 6.
There's 5.
5. James Gunn was having far too much fun with this one. So in mid and post-credit scenes, first we have Kraglin takes up Yondu's telekinetic arrow and control Finn and stabs Drax. We have the Ravager leader, Stakar O'Gord, reuniting with some ex-teammates.
I think it's about time that we form a team again, like the good old days.
Aisha.
Sorry, Sly. If you are listening, I'm a big fan.
We love you. Aisha creates a new artificial being with whom she plans to destroy the Guardians, naming him Adam. Groot has now grown into a teenager, and a group of uninterested watchers abandon their informant who is discussing his experiences on Earth. Colin, any of those you particularly enjoyed?
I think the one I liked the most probably would have been the Groot one. Seeing him sort of growing up, so you know that in the next installment or when he pops up next, he's going to be sort of on a different...
Yeah, so are you looking at this now the same way you looked at it last when you saw Baby Groot and you were like, I don't know if I'm looking forward to that. So we obviously end with the big titles as well. The Guardians will return. And so I kind of think that you're on the right lines there, that when we do see them next, it will be Teenage Groot. Are you looking forward to Teenage Groot?
I'm going to say yes, because I wasn't looking forward to Baby Groot, and they did a really good job with him in this one. So I'm up for it, man. Groot. I'm on Team Groot.
And like I said,
the rest of them, I mean, obviously Adam's going to be big, because you even mentioned
he
at the
wanted
beginning
to
that he was
use
meant
Adam
to be
Warlock. Didn't
yeah.
use him in this film, but he's clearly being set up. Yes.
Next
Rob,
time.
Yeah.
next time,
Definitely.
baby. Rob, any thoughts on any of these sequences?
The sequences, they are good fun, really. They're not meant to sort of, apart from the Adam Warlock one, none of them are really like, oh shit, they're doing that next. They're good fun. And the credits themselves are absolutely riddled with good bits of fun. For instance, I'm going to bust out my trumpet. Audio commentary facts.
There it is.
Cool. Got there eventually. I was just hoping you wasn't going to step on it. So I thought I'd give you a chance to interrupt.
On a 5 as well. On a 5.
I know, after that
After
story.
all that backstory.
Oh, we
man,
got
like,
me
come on.
glassy-eyed as well, Rob.
You did.
I still fought back the tears to interrupt
Shat
your
all
ass.
over him, yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, the end credits, there's a smattering of cool things, certain titles of, like, sections, like VFX or whatever, will say, I am Groot, and then be translated to that heading. There's also, at the end of the credits, it says, no raccoons or tree creatures were harmed during the making of this movie. The same cannot be said of handlers of raccoons and tree creatures. And the other bit of trivia was Gunn's parents. They had a cameo during all the Earth mayhem with the Smurf spunk. They're in a car trying to escape, it all going on, as is Peter Quill's granddad from the opening of the first film. But would you like to know what James Gunn credited his parents as?
Go on.
So his dad was credited as Weird Old Man, and his mum was credited as Weird Old Man's Mistress, which apparently she found very amusing.
Good. Yes. So, yeah, I think my favourite there is, to be honest, it's very easy to make me laugh. It's when Kraglin stabs Drax.
Okay.
That has me in hysterics every single time.
I didn't like having the series of them.
No?
I didn't like having 5 in there. Nah, I just think...
You don't get that again. I think you're safe for now.
Okay, cool.
Did you know Stallone's crew, there were some famous faces within, because they were all characters that are original Guardians of the Galaxy. So the little robot head was voiced by Miley Cyrus. The dude with the ice head, Martin X, I think the character's called, was played by Michael Rosenbaum, he played Lex Luthor in Smallville. Apparently he's a very good friend of James Gunn, and he actually auditioned for Star-Lord as well. So he eventually got brought into the fold. Michelle, is it Yeoh?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you pronounce her surname, but she was recently in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and she's a Hong Kong movie legend. She was in that moment. I'm not sure who played the weird dragon thing, if anyone. But yeah, there's some little cameos hidden in that moment there as well.
Yep, for sure. So, yes, we will see you all next episode in New York. Colin, apprehensive? Because I know you quite a bit, like you said on our last bonus episode, Tobey Maguire is your Spider-Man.
He is.
You've already seen Tom Holland in Civil War. How are we feeling? A little bit nervous, a little more excited to see Tom Holland's take on the role and to see him join the world of the MCU?
I am excited because I know, the little I do know about the Marvel world is I know that he's gone down well, or at least from the small sort of, things that I hear out there. I think he's gone down very well as the new sort of Spider-Man. But Tobey Maguire's my Spider-Man, so he's going to have to do something.
Challenge accepted. Tune in next week, everyone, and stay safe, stay well, stay nerdy.